Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. In this lesson, we'll be analyzing the poem I Hear an Army, written by James Joyce. I hear an army charging upon the land, and the thunder of horses plunging from about their knees. Sorry, and the thunder of horses plunging foam about their knees. So the speaker hears an army somewhere in the distance, making its thunderous way across the land, presumably as part of an invasion. Notice how the lack of detail here builds tension in the poem. The reader has no idea whose army this is, nor for what purpose they fight. All the reader knows is that something dramatic and likely threatening is taking place. The intense auditory imagery in these lines, it creates a vivid sonic landscape for the reader. The speaker doesn't see the army, at least not just yet, but he hears the army. This makes the army seem all the more frightening because the speaker and the reader doesn't yet know what they actually look like, and thus it might imagine they have to then imagine, yeah, it leads them to imagine then all sorts of foes and enemies. The meter mostly is iambic, which is unstressed and stressed, but there are a few parts in which in the middle it is anapes as well. Anapes is unstressed, unstressed, and stressed. For example, I hear is I am, and again I am, again I am. This one is unstressed, unstressed, and stressed. Okay, therefore this is anapes. So both iams and anapes, they are rising feet. What does it mean? It means that they move from unstressed to stressed beats. So this creates a sense of propulsion, and it is evoking the galloping of those horses and the army's charging motion. And the consonants and assonance in army charging. Consonants and assonance in army charging. It adds energy and emphasis to this opening line. In line 2, it reveals a bit more about this army. These aren't modern soldiers with tanks and artillery. Instead, this army uses horses for transport. So the pounding of those horses' hooves creates a sound like thunder as their legs go plunging through the water. This detail suggests the army has just landed on a coastline. So the horses' powerful movements whip foam about their knees, violently disturbing the surface of water, just as they disturb the speaker's sleep. And the thunder of horses plunging foam about their knees. So the poem uses various techniques to create poetic thunder, bringing this auditory imagery to life. For example, and thunder of horses plunging. So and sound and thunder and plunging. The meter here once again relies on march like iams and galloping anapes to evoke the horse's movement. You can see and the thunder of horses plunging foam about their knees. So again, these two feet, they are again anapes and the remaining are iam. So poem is using various techniques to create poetic thunder, bringing this auditory imagery to life. Okay, just like in and thunder and plunging and the anapes and iams over here. Arrogant in black armor, behind them stand, disdaining the reins with fluttering whips, the charioteers. So lines 3 and 4 describe the soldiers themselves, and they make for an extremely ominous looking group. For one thing, these soldiers are charioteers. Yani ke they ride in carts pulled by horses. Chariots feature in many ancient epic battle legends. You must have seen many movies also in which the soldiers would have been fighting in or using chariots. Their mention here makes this army seem like something pulled from Greek or Roman myth. So the soldiers themselves are also arrogant or overly proud, implying that they're not worrying about the defeat. Okay, they are arrogant. Okay, so this implies that they're not worried about defeat. And what do they wear? They wear scary black armor that perhaps makes them seem like a force of evil and darkness. And they crack their fluttering whips through the air. So confident are these soldiers in the knowledge that they have full authority over their animals, they don't even feel the need to hold their horses' rein. Okay, na? Disdaining the reins. They're not even holding the reins of their horses. They disdain their reins. In fact, looking down on these tools with disgust. They look at the reins of these animals in disdain, in disgust. Yani ke they do not even need the disdain, the reins of the horses to control them. Okay, so this suggests that how powerful and how full of authority these soldiers are. And note how complex the phrasing of these lines is. The main subject of the sentence doesn't arrive until the very last word. Arrogant in black armor, by con arrogant, by con black armor, behind them stand, kiske behind, disdaining the reins with fluttering wings. And then the last phrase is the one, the charioteers. Okay, so according to this is the phrasing through which the main subject of the sentence doesn't arrive until the very last. So the reader thus gets to know about the charioteers before knowing that they are charioteers. Okay, na? They get to know about the charioteers before knowing that they are actually charioteers through black armor, through behind them stand, disdaining names, with fluttering names. Okay, na? It creates an idea. Then the numerous caesura throughout these lines create this grammatical delay, instilling the poem with a sense of rising tension. Caesura, caesura, again caesura, caesura. Okay, so the numerous caesuras throughout these lines create grammatical delay, which is instilling the poem with a sense of rising tension. कि अभी कुछ होने वाला है. There are so many pauses. So the poem heightens the soldier's aura of frightening mystery, placing them as the sentence main event. Once again, the assonance, alliteration, and consonance in arrogant, in black armor, behind, disdaining the rain. It adds intensity to the poem. Let us move on to the next line. They cry unto the night their battle name. I moan in sleep when I hear afar their whirling laughter. They cleave the gloom of dreams, a, a blinding flame, clanging, clanging upon the heart as upon an anvil. So the next stanza reveals that these nightmarish soldiers are just the product of the speaker's nightmare. So these soldiers cry and यानी के क्या लिखा हुआ है? Shout their battle, okay, unto the night. So these soldiers they cried or shout their battle unto the night. Yani ke these shouts or these cries of soldiers are heard into the night. Yani ke this battle starts in the night. So that they make these cries unto or at and not into the night. Unto means at the night, not into the night. It suggests that their mission is in some sense actively against the night. This makes sense given that these soldiers seem to be a manifestation of the speaker's pain and anxiety, which refuse to let the speaker rest. So, this army, which readers might start to suspect is really a representation of the speaker's troubled thoughts, is effectively fighting against the peaceful restfulness of sleep itself. It is actually attacking the sleep of the speaker. The speaker moans upon hearing the far off whirling laughter of the soldiers. This auditory imagery has an almost hallucinogenic quality. It is as though the soldiers' mocking laughter has swirled and echoed across impossible distances to unsettle the speaker or the sleeping speaker. That this laughter is whirling or spinning further suggests that it surrounds the speaker. In lines 7 and 8, the army appears to outright attack the speaker. They cleave or slice into or split the gloom or the murky darkness of dreams. It is as though the army has torn apart the comforting darkness of sleep, replacing it with a blinding flame that burns away the speaker's peace. So, next, the army strikes down upon the speaker's heart, clanging against it as though hammering down on an anvil. This simile evokes this simile evokes the sound of metal upon metal and conveys the pounding pain the speaker feels. It is no wonder the speaker can't rest. It also again implies that how difficult the nightmare army has made it for the speaker to rest. It would be impossible to sleep with a blinding flame in your eyes and the sound of metal clanging in your eyes. So the sounds of these lines, they mimic the chaotic and cacophonous approach of this army. For one thing, note the anaphora of lines 5 and 7, both of which begin with they, followed by a verb. Okay, they cry, they cleave. It is emphasizing their parallelism. This repetition creates the sensation of a continual and relentless attack. They cry, they creep. तो लगता है कि they are coming back again and again. Okay, na? They're attacking again and again. There's not stopping the attacks. And then we find the epistaxis of clanging. It implies that this pounding on the speaker's heart, which is their emotional center, is non-stop and painfully loud. Okay, just like they cried and they cleave was non-stop because it's repeating again and again, and it is loud as well painfully because they cry, they cleave. Now we must note over here that the word clanging is a trochee. Trochee क्या होता है? Trochee is the opposite of an IM. IM क्या होता है? Unstressed stress. तो trochee क्या होगा? Stressed unstressed. So placing two trochees at the start of line 8, it evokes the sheer power of that clanging. Okay? Clanging, clanging. Okay? Stress first. Okay? It suggests the sheer power of that clanging itself. So these trochees interrupt the poem's flow, which again is generally iambic. The line before is perfect iambic meter, in fact. Okay, so when everything is going smooth in the iambic form, these trochees interrupt the poem's flow. This metrical disruption evokes the speaker's disturbed state of mind. Okay, because it is clanging. This whole stanza is filled with clashing consonants, assonance, and direct repetition that combines into one great horrible cacophony. They cleave the gloom of dreams, a blinding flame clanging upon the heart as upon an anvil. Okay, so the sounds are so much against each other over here that it is creating some sort of cacophonous, some sort of harsh sound. That's why it is cacophony over here. So the mixture of sharp, guttural, and plosive sounds create a chaotic and intimidating mess that reflects the ruckus of this imaginary army. Lines 9 and 10. They come shaking in triumph, their long green hair, they come out of the sea and run shouting by the shore. So the army's onslaught doesn't subside or decline in the poem's final stanza. Instead, the speaker continues the they anaphora to convey how the army continues to advance on the desperate speaker. They come shaking, they come out of the sea. Line 9 is intensifying the poem's strange atmosphere. These fighters come out of the sea and shake their long green hair in triumph. It is almost as though these soldiers are a strange mashup of different fighters, partially Roman charioteers and some ugly demons and wizards. They are drawn up from the sea, meaning the depths of the speaker's unconscious mind, to disturb the surface of the speaker's thoughts, seemingly represented here by the shore, along which the soldiers run, shouting in celebration of their victory. So, given that this invading army consists of thoughts and feelings rather than actual soldiers, the battle was effectively won before it began. That is, if these fighters intend to disturb and upset the speaker, the mission is accomplished. They've already been successful in disturbing the speaker. The alliteration of shout and shore, he creates yet more harsh poetic noise, perhaps even with a touch of irony, as the sh sound is so often associated with leave. But the idea is opposite to leave. Last lines. My heart, have you no wisdom, thus to despair? My love, my love, my love, why they have you left me alone? The poem's final two lines are notably different from the rest. Suddenly, as though jolted awake, the speaker asks two searching and painful questions. My heart, have you no wisdom thus to despair? My love, my love, my love, why have you left me alone? So it is an important moment revealing the source of the speaker's distress, heartbreak. Their love has left them. Perhaps they broke up, or perhaps this love died, making the speaker's heart sink into despair. This reframes everything that has come before, making sense of the link between the ghastly army and the speaker's troubled spirit. The soldiers apparently represent the speaker's untameable worries, fears, and regrets related to lost love, which he can never tame. Therefore, those worries are untamable. Both questions are also an example of the device apostrophe, addressing something or someone that is clearly not able to respond. The speaker addresses their own heart, the center of their emotional self, and basically asks, don't you know any better than to fall into this sadness trap again? So the H alliteration, heart and have, suggests breathlessness and anxiety. The last line again begins with my, creating another example of emphatic anaphora. The opening of this line is also an example of epizeuxis. My love, my love, my love. Again, epizeuxis. So this repetition adds intensity to the poem's final line, and it also helps to convey the depths of the speaker's pain as they call out of their beloved again and again and again with no response. So the speaker is utterly alone with their agony, ending on this hopeless note. Then the poem thus shows the tragic power of heartbreak to overwhelm and defeat someone. Themes. The one theme is the pain of heartbreak. So I hear an army conjures a frightening nightmare while sleeping. The poem speaker is plagued by a great ghostly army that emerges from the ocean on horse-drawn chariots. So ultimately, it becomes clear that these fearsome riders bearing down on the soldiers are the product of a troubled mind. They represent the overwhelming loneliness and despair that the speaker feels after being left by their love. So, in this way, the poem vividly illustrates the toll of romantic loss and how heartbreak can cause relentlessness, anxiety, and even outright terror. The symbol. The army is the symbol. The army that the speaker hails represents the relentless barrage of negative emotions, pain, anxiety, regret, and loneliness. So, stemming from the speaker's heartbreak, this frightening army emerges from the sea, an image suggesting that these fighters are born from the depths of the speaker's subconscious. That they shout by the shore as the horses kick up foam also suggests the way they rise to and disrupt the surface of speaker's thought. The literary devices that have been used over here are apostrophe, assonance, caesura, cacophony, imagery, and repetition. So let us now move on to the form of this poem. I hear an army consists of three quatrains. I hear an army consists of three quatrains, each of which uses a mostly iambic dadum rhythm and follows an ABAC rhyme scheme. This steady stanza structure perhaps evokes the rigid organization of an army into separate units. The form is relatively predictable, reflecting the arm's seemingly inevitable victory. We've already talked about meter, then there is rhyme scheme. I Hear an Army has a symbol rhyme scheme running throughout, in which each stanza, the people and the third lines rhyme, while the second stanza and fourth do not. So the rhyme scheme is ABAC. So on the one hand, this steady pattern adds to the poem's feeling of relentless momentum. That is, regular rhyme gives the poem forward movement. At the same time, however, it is more common in poetry for the second and the third lines of a stanza to rhyme ABCB. I Hear an Army resists this unexpected pattern, denying readers a sense of sonic resolution at the end of the stanza. This in turn evokes the speaker's lingering anguish. Literary context. James Joyce was one of the most influential writers of the 20th century. They thought best known, though best known for his novel Ulysses. I Hear an Army is the closing poem in the first of his collection. Chamber music, okay, the name of that collection is Chamber Music. While many of the other poems conjure pleasant pastoral words, I Hear an Army creates an apocalyptic vision drawn from a nightmare. Historical context. James Joyce was born in Dublin in 1882. He composed most of the poems in chamber music between 1901 and 1906, which, while still in 20s, he later called the work a young man's book. So the Joyce viewed the book as a representation of himself as a strange, lonely boy walking about by myself at night and thinking that someday a girl would have loved. With this, we are going to end this lesson. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask. Okay, and please go through the answer.